There's a battlefield inside every interaction, a silent clash of wills, desires, perspectives. We're taught, often subtly, sometimes brutally, that to win, someone must lose. That strength is measured in dominance, victory in the submission of another. We brace for impact, raise our shields, sharpen our verbal swords, ready to defend our patch of ground, convinced that the only way forward is through force, through argument, through making the other side yield. We fight, we push, we demand, and sometimes we even win. Or so we think. But what if there's another way? A path less traveled yet infinitely more powerful. A way to achieve your aims, to influence outcomes, to navigate the treacherous currents of human disagreement, not by overpowering, but by understanding, not by fighting, but by connecting. What if true strength, the kind that builds empires, launches movements, and transforms lives, lies not in the force of your fist, but in the depth of your empathy? Imagine stepping onto that battlefield, not with armor, but with an open hand, not with a weapon, but with a genuine question. Imagine winning, truly winning, achieving your goals, building lasting alliances, fostering goodwill, without ever drawing a sword. This isn't weakness, it's a higher form of strength. This isn't surrender, it's strategic grace. This is the art of peaceful persuasion, the power to win without fighting. Forget the shouting matches, the slammed doors, the simmering resentments that follow a hollow victory. Forget the exhaustion of constant conflict, the brittle relationships built on compromise extracted under duress. There's a strength that doesn't roar but resonates, a power that doesn't break down doors but finds the key. It begins not in changing others, but in mastering yourself. It starts with a fundamental shift in the way you see the world, the way you see the person standing opposite you. Look beyond the disagreement, beyond the opposing stance, beyond the frustrating words. What do you see? Not an enemy. Not an obstacle, but another human being driven by the same fundamental desires that drive you, the desire to be understood, to be valued, to feel safe, to achieve their own goals. They have their own story, their own pressures, their own perspective shaped by experiences you can only guess at. The moment you truly grasp this, the entire dynamic shifts. The battlefield dissolves, replaced by a potential meeting ground. This isn't about naive optimism. It's about profound realism. It's acknowledging the complex tapestry of human motivation. Abraham Lincoln, facing a nation tearing itself apart, understood this. He didn't win the presidency by demonizing his rivals, but by understanding the fears and hopes that fueled both sides. His genius lay not just in his intellect, but in his capacity for empathy. His ability to articulate a vision that even amidst the deepest division spoke to a shared humanity. He sought not to crush the opposition with rhetoric, but to persuade, to find common ground, even when it seemed impossible. He knew that lasting solutions aren't imposed. They are built brick by painstaking brick on a foundation of mutual understanding. However fragile, this journey begins with a revolution in your own mind. It requires dismantling the ingrained belief that disagreement equals combat. It demands you cultivate the radical act of seeing the world through another's eyes, especially when you fundamentally disagree with their view. Can you just for a moment suspend your judgment? Can you silence the relentless inner monologue that's already crafting your rebuttal, formulating your counterattack? Can you choose curiosity over condemnation? Think of the last time you felt truly heard, not just listened to, while someone waited for their turn to speak, but heard. Understood, validated. Remember the feeling. The tension easing, the defensiveness melting away, the space opening up for connection. That is the power you can wield, not over others, but with them. By offering that gift, the gift of genuine understanding, you unlock a door that force can never breach. You invite collaboration where conflict once reigned. This isn't about being a doormat. It's about being a master architect of human interaction. It requires immense inner strength, a disciplined mind capable of navigating emotional storms without being swept away. It demands you anchor yourself in your own principles, your own objectives, but approach the negotiation, the conversation, the disagreement with the flexibility of a seasoned diplomat, the insight of a psychologist, and the patience of a saint. The first step is always inward. Examine your own triggers. What makes you immediately defensive? What assumptions do you bring into every interaction? Are you listening to understand or listening to reply? Be brutally honest with yourself. This self-awareness is the bedrock upon which peaceful persuasion is built. Without it, you're merely reacting, caught in the same old destructive patterns. With it, you gain control. You choose your response. You steer the interaction rather than being steered by it. You begin to see the subtle currents beneath the surface, the unspoken needs, the hidden fears. You stop battling the waves and start learning to navigate the ocean. This is where the real power lies, not in changing the tides, but in mastering your own vessel. This mastery requires belief, not just a fleeting hope, but a deep, unwavering conviction in the power of this approach. You must believe that understanding is more potent than aggression. Believe that connection is more productive than conflict. Believe that finding common ground is a sign of strength, not weakness. Without this core belief, you'll revert to old habits the moment things get tough. When faced with stubbornness, with anger, with seeming irrationality, your belief is your anchor. It reminds you that there's always a human being behind the resistance, a reason behind the refusal, even if it's hidden from view. Think of Thomas Edison relentlessly pursuing the electric light. How many failures? 10,000, the legend goes. When asked about it, he reportedly said he hadn't failed. He'd just found 10,000 ways that wouldn't work. That wasn't just persistence. It was a fundamental belief in the possibility of success, a refusal to see setbacks as defeats. Apply that same mindset to human interaction. Every difficult conversation, every negotiation that stalls, every instance where persuasion seems impossible, these aren't failures. They are opportunities to learn to refine your approach, to deepen your understanding of human nature, and to strengthen your belief in the power of connection. You haven't failed to persuade. You've simply discovered approaches that aren't effective yet. The belief isn't just that you can succeed, but that a mutually agreeable path exists, waiting to be uncovered. It's a belief in the potential for a win-win. Even when the scoreboard initially shows 0-0 or worse, you feel like you're losing ground. This conviction fuels the patience required, the creativity needed to find alternative routes, the resilience to keep seeking connection when faced with a wall. It transforms obstacles into puzzles, confrontations into conversations waiting to happen. Clarity is the compass in this journey. You cannot navigate effectively without knowing your destination. But crucially, in the art of peaceful persuasion, you need clarity, not just on your own goals, but on the potential goals and needs of the other person. What do you truly want to achieve in this interaction? Be specific. Is it a signature on a contract? A change in behavior? Simple agreement, understanding. Define it clearly in your own mind. Vague objectives lead to meandering conversations and frustrating outcomes. Know your non-negotiables, but also identify areas where you can be flexible. but then turn the lens outwards. What does the other person likely want? What are their pressures, their priorities, their fears? Step into their shoes. What does the situation look like from their side of the table? What might they stand to lose? What are their underlying interests beneath the surface demands? Often people don't explicitly state their core needs, they state positions. I need a bigger budget, might be a position. The underlying interest could be feeling valued, having the resources to succeed, or job security. I won't work on that project, could be a position. The interest might be fear of failure, lack of confidence, or feeling overwhelmed. Your task is to become a detective of human motivation. Listen not just to the words, but to the emotions behind them. Ask open-ended questions. Help me understand why that's important to you. What does that look like from your perspective? What concerns you most about this? Seek clarity, not just for yourself, but with the other person. When you strive to understand their world with genuine curiosity, you disarm them. Defensiveness lowers when someone feels their perspective is being sought, not attacked. This shared clarity becomes the foundation for finding common ground. You might discover that your core objectives aren't mutually exclusive after all. You might find creative solutions that satisfy both parties' underlying interests, even if their initial positions seemed diametrically opposed. Think of a skilled negotiator. They don't just slam their demands on the table. They probe, they ask questions, they listen intently. They map out the landscape of needs and desires before they even begin to propose solutions. They understand that clarity precedes agreement. Without understanding the why behind the no, you're just pushing against a locked door. Find the why, and you might just find the key. This pursuit of clarity requires patience. It means resisting the urge to jump to conclusions or offer premature solutions. It means truly listening, absorbing, and reflecting before you respond. It's an investment that pays dividends in smoother interactions and more sustainable agreements. This clarity illuminates your vision. It elevates the interaction beyond a simple transaction or disagreement. What is the larger purpose here? Are you just trying to win this single argument, or are you building a relationship? Are you just trying to get this task done, or are you fostering a collaborative environment? Peaceful persuasion isn't just a tactic. It's a philosophy rooted in a vision of better human connection. It's about seeing beyond the immediate conflict to the long-term benefits of cooperation, trust, and mutual respect. When your purpose is clear, to build bridges, not walls, to find solutions, not victories, to enhance understanding, not score points, your actions naturally align with that vision. You become less concerned with being right and more focused on finding the right way forward together. This sense of purpose fuels your resilience. It reminds you why you're choosing the harder path of empathy and understanding over the easier path of force or withdrawal. It gives meaning to the effort. Think of the great builders, the visionaries like Walt Disney. He faced monumental setbacks, bankruptcies, betrayals, but his vision of creating places of joy and imagination was so powerful, so clear, that it pulled him through. He didn't just want to make cartoons, he wanted to build worlds. He persuaded bankers, artists, engineers, not always easily, by painting a compelling picture of his vision, by making them believe in the purpose behind the project. Your purpose in any interaction viewed through this lens becomes larger than the immediate issue. It's about demonstrating a better way to engage. It's about contributing to a more constructive, less adversarial world. One conversation at a time. This elevates the stakes beyond your own ego. It connects your personal interactions to a grander ideal. When you approach a difficult conversation with the purpose of building understanding, you carry yourself differently. Your energy shifts. You radiate collaboration, not conflict, and people respond to that energy. They sense the sincerity. They feel the invitation to engage on a higher level. This vision, This purpose becomes your silent, persuasive partner in every interaction. It guides your words, shapes your tone, and ultimately influences the outcome far more profoundly than any argument could. At the heart of this entire endeavor lies empathy practiced through the discipline of deep listening. We think we listen, but mostly we wait to talk. We filter everything through our own experiences, our own opinions, our own agendas. True listening, the kind that unlocks peaceful persuasion, is different. It's an active, engaged process. It's about silencing your inner chatter and focusing completely on the other person. What are they saying? What are they not saying? What emotions flicker beneath the surface? What is their body language telling you? Dale Carnegie himself built his philosophy on this foundation. Principle number 1 in his legendary book, become genuinely interested in other people. Not pretend interest. Genuine interest. People can sense insincerity a mile away. But when you truly focus your attention on understanding someone else's world, their thoughts, their feelings, their experiences, something magical happens. Walls crumble. Trust begins to form. You make the other person feel important, feel valued, feel heard. And that feeling is one of the most powerful catalysts for cooperation known to humankind. How do you practice this? Start simple. Put away distractions. Make eye contact. Nod. Offer verbal cues that you're engaged. I see, that makes sense. Tell me more, but go deeper. Ask clarifying questions not to interrogate, but to understand. Paraphrase what you hear, to ensure you've grasped it correctly. So if I'm understanding you right, you're feeling frustrated because this not only confirms your understanding, but shows the other person you're truly invested in getting it right. Validate their feelings even if you don't agree with their perspective or conclusion. I can see why you'd feel that way. That sounds incredibly frustrating. It makes sense you'd be concerned about that. Validation isn't agreement. It's acknowledging the legitimacy of their emotional experience. It costs you nothing yet. It can instantly de-escalate tension and build rapport. Think about it. How receptive are you to someone's point of view when they've just dismissed your feelings or told you you're wrong to feel a certain way? Conversely, how much more open are you when someone acknowledges your emotions with respect? This kind of listening requires humility. It requires setting aside your ego, your need to be right, your urge to interrupt and correct. It's a discipline. It takes practice. But the rewards are immense. When you truly listen, you gather invaluable information. You uncover the hidden interests, the unspoken objections, the potential points of connection you would have missed entirely if you were just waiting for your turn to speak. You gain insight into how best to frame your own perspective in a way that resonates with them, addressing their concerns, speaking their language. Listening is not passive. It's the most active, most strategic element of peaceful persuasion. It's the intelligence gathering that informs your entire approach, allowing you to navigate the conversation with precision and grace, finding the path to agreement without resorting to conflict. The words you choose are the brush strokes with which you paint the outcome of an interaction. Language is potent. It can build bridges or erect walls. It can soothe or inflame. Mastering peaceful persuasion means becoming a conscious architect of your language, choosing words that open doors rather than slamming them shut. Avoid loaded terms, accusations, and absolute statements that instantly put others on the defensive. You always cry, you never. That's a stupid idea. You're wrong. These are conversation killers. They trigger fight or flight responses, shutting down any possibility of productive dialogue. Instead, focus on I statements to express your own feelings and perspectives Without assigning blame, I feel concerned when, instead of, "You're making me concerned," I see it differently, instead of, "You're wrong." Frame your points around shared interests and common goals. We both want this project to succeed. So, how can we? Finding a solution that works for everyone is important. Perhaps we could explore. This language fosters collaboration and frames the conversation as a joint problem-solving effort, rather than a battle of opposing views. Questions are perhaps the most powerful tool in your linguistic arsenal. Instead of making demands, ask questions that guide the other person towards the conclusion you seek, allowing them to feel ownership of the idea. Socrates knew this well, using questions to lead his students to understanding. Instead of saying, "We need to cut the budget here," try, "Given our budget constraints, where do you think we could find some savings with the least impact?" Instead of, "You need to work late," try, "We have this urgent deadline. What would it take for us to meet it?" Questions invite participation, demonstrate respect for the other person's input, and often lead to more creative and willingly accepted solutions than direct orders ever could. Think also about the power of framing. How you present an issue can dramatically alter how it's perceived. Are you framing it as a loss or a gain, a problem or an opportunity, a risk or a challenge? When Henry Ford introduced the then unheard-of $5 workday, many saw it as lunacy, an unnecessary expense. But Ford framed it as an investment, attracting the best workers, reducing turnover, increasing productivity, and even creating customers who could afford his cars. He reframed the narrative from cost to benefit, persuading skeptics by appealing to their long-term interests. Learn to frame your proposals, your ideas, your requests in a way that highlights the benefits for the other person, aligns with their values, or addresses their concerns preemptively. Show them how your suggestion helps them achieve their goals. This careful use of language requires mindfulness and self-control. It's easy to slip back into argumentative patterns, especially when feeling attacked or frustrated. That's where discipline comes in. Choosing your words deliberately, even under pressure, is a hallmark of persuasive mastery. It's about communicating with intention, ensuring your language serves your purpose of building understanding and finding agreement, rather than simply venting emotion or trying to win points. Every word matters. Choose them wisely. This path, the path of understanding, empathy, and carefully chosen words, is not the path of least resistance. It demands immense self-discipline and unwavering patience. It's far easier in the heat of the moment to lash out, to argue, to try and force your will upon another, resisting that primal urge. Choosing instead to pause, to listen, to seek understanding requires a strength far greater than mere aggression. It requires emotional regulation, the ability to manage your own impulses and reactions, especially when faced with negativity or opposition. Think of the immense pressure Lincoln faced daily during the Civil War. Criticism from his general's opposition in Congress. The weight of a divided nation. Yet he was known for his patience, his willingness to listen to dissenting views, his calm demeanor amidst the storm. He rarely acted impulsively. He gathered information, considered different angles, controlled his frustrations, and responded with measured thought. This wasn't weakness. It was profound self-mastery. It allowed him to make clearer decisions, to maintain alliances, and to steer the nation through its darkest hour without succumbing to the reactive chaos that surrounded him. Discipline in peaceful persuasion means biting your tongue when you want to retort sharply. It means forcing yourself to ask why when your instinct is to say no. It means staying engaged and curious when you feel like shutting down or walking away. It means maintaining respect for the other person, even when you strongly disagree or feel personally attacked. This isn't about suppressing your feelings, but about managing your response to those feelings. Acknowledge your anger, your frustration, your impatience, but don't let them dictate your actions or your words. Channel that energy into understanding the source of the conflict rather than fueling the fire. Patience is the companion to discipline. Persuasion rarely happens instantly. People need time to process information, to consider alternatives, to overcome their own resistance or biases. Pushing too hard too fast often backfires, strengthening their resolve to oppose you. Peaceful persuasion requires giving ideas time to germinate. It means circling back gently, reinforcing points, allowing space for reflection. Sometimes the most persuasive thing you can do is plant a seed and patiently wait for it to grow rather than trying to force it open. It means understanding that progress might be incremental, that building trust takes time, that changing long-held beliefs doesn't happen overnight. This doesn't mean being passive. It means being strategically patient. Knowing when to push gently, when to offer more information, when to simply listen, and when to step back and allow time to do its work. It's a dance requiring sensitivity and judgment. But without the underlying foundation of discipline and patience, you'll abandon the approach at the first sign of difficulty, retreating to the familiar, less effective tactics of conflict. Cultivating this inner fortitude, this ability to remain calm, centered, and patient under pressure, is essential. It's the engine that keeps you on the path of peaceful persuasion, allowing you to navigate complex human dynamics with grace and achieve outcomes that force alone could never secure. While patience and listening are crucial, peaceful persuasion is not passive acceptance. It demands action. Strategic, thoughtful, deliberate action grounded in the understanding you've cultivated. It's about taking initiative, guiding the conversation, and moving towards a resolution, but doing so with finesse rather than force. This isn't about waiting indefinitely for someone to come around. It's about actively creating the conditions for agreement. Think about how Benjamin Franklin handled his detractors. When he needed support for a public project, he wouldn't just argue its merits. He understood human psychology. He knew people like to feel helpful, to be asked for their expertise. Famously, when facing opposition from a wealthy and influential legislator, Franklin didn't confront him directly. Instead, hearing the man owned a rare book, Franklin wrote him a polite letter expressing admiration for the book and asking if he might borrow it for a few days. The man, flattered, sent it immediately. Franklin returned it promptly with a thank you note. The next time they met in the legislative house, the man, who had never spoken to Franklin before, approached him with great civility, expressed his readiness to serve him on all occasions, and they became great friends. Franklin had won him over, not by arguing but by a small strategic action that appealed to the man's pride and desire to be magnanimous. He created an opening for connection through a thoughtful, non-confrontational gesture. Strategic action in persuasion might involve framing the conversation, taking the initiative to set a positive, collaborative tone from the outset, asking the right questions, proactively seeking information and guiding the discussion towards productive areas, presenting information effectively, sharing data stories or examples tailored to the other person's interests and perspective, gathered through careful listening, proposing solutions, tentatively offering potential solutions framed as suggestions. What if we tried, would something like X be feasible? Inviting feedback and collaboration rather than imposing answers. Making the first concession strategically. Sometimes offering a small concession on a less critical point can build goodwill and encourage reciprocity. Finding objective criteria. Suggesting the use of external standards, benchmarks, or expert opinions to depersonalize the disagreement and guide decision-making. Following up after a conversation. Reinforcing agreements or gently revisiting open points with patience and persistence. action must be informed by empathy and clarity. Acting prematurely, without sufficient understanding, can be just as damaging as forceful argument. But inaction born of fear or uncertainty allows stalemate and prevents progress. The art lies in the timing and nature of the action, ensuring it serves to build bridges, clarify understanding, and move towards a mutually agreeable outcome. It's about leading gently but firmly towards the solution. You envision using the tools of connection and understanding rather than coercion. It transforms persuasion from a passive hope into an active directed process steered by intelligence and empathy. The path of peaceful persuasion is rarely a straight line. You will encounter resistance, you will face setbacks, you will deal with people who seem entirely unreasonable, immovably entrenched in their positions. This is where adaptability and resilience become paramount. Winning without fighting doesn't mean every interaction will be smooth or easy. It means having the flexibility to adjust your approach and the inner strength to persevere when faced with obstacles. Think of water. It's the softest thing yet. It can wear away the hardest rock. It doesn't confront the obstacle head-on. It flows around it, adapts to the shape of the land, finds the path of least resistance, yet relentlessly moves towards its destination. Be like water in your interactions. If one approach isn't working, don't just keep pushing harder. Adapt. Try a different angle. Ask different questions. Reframe the issue. Perhaps you need to gather more information, or maybe the timing isn't right. Maybe you need to involve a third party or appeal to a different set of interests. Adaptability requires letting go of rigid attachment to a specific tactic or outcome. While your core principles and ultimate goal remain firm, your methods must be flexible. Observe the reaction your approach is eliciting. Is it creating openness or defensiveness? Is it moving the conversation forward or stalling it? Be willing to change course based on real-time feedback. This isn't inconsistency. It's responsiveness. It's like a sailor adjusting the sails to catch the wind, rather than trying to command the wind itself. Resilience is the ability to bounce back from these setbacks without losing your conviction or resorting to old combative habits. When a conversation goes poorly, when someone reacts with anger or refuses to engage, it's easy to get discouraged, frustrated, or to take it personally. Resilience allows you to see these moments not as failures, but as learning opportunities. What could you have done differently? What did you learn about the other person's perspective or triggers? What does this reveal about the underlying dynamics? Resilience means maintaining your composure, dusting yourself off, and trying again, perhaps, with a revised strategy. It means protecting your own emotional well-being, so that negativity from others doesn't derail your commitment to a more constructive approach. It's fueled by your belief in the process and your larger purpose. Napoleon Hill, studying the most successful people of his time, found that persistence, the refusal to quit in the face of temporary defeat, was a universal trait. Resilience is that persistence applied to human interaction. It's understanding that navigating complex personalities and entrenched disagreements is a marathon, not a sprint. It requires stamina, the ability to absorb bumps without being thrown off course, and the unwavering determination to keep seeking connection and understanding, even when it feels like swimming against the current. Adaptability provides the tools to navigate. Resilience provides the strength to keep going. Woven into the fabric of effective persuasion, especially the peaceful kind, is the often overlooked power of gratitude and appreciation. It seems simple, almost counterintuitive when dealing with disagreement, but expressing genuine appreciation can fundamentally alter the emotional climate of any interaction. Dale Carnegie emphasized this constantly. Be hearty in your approbation and lavish in your praise. He understood that people crave appreciation, that feeling valued is a deep human need. This isn't about insincere flattery, which is easily detected and counterproductive. It's about actively looking for things you can honestly appreciate in the other person or their perspective, and expressing that appreciation sincerely. Even in the midst of conflict, can you find something to acknowledge? Perhaps their dedication to their team, their passion for their point of view. Even if you disagree with it, their willingness to even engage in the conversation. The effort they've put into their work, a specific skill they possess, or a past contribution they made. Acknowledging the positive, however small, does several things. First, it humanizes the interaction. It reminds both parties that you're dealing with people, not just positions. Second, it lowers defenses. When someone feels genuinely appreciated, they become less guarded, more open to listening, and more willing to cooperate. Appreciation acts like a balm on the friction of disagreement. Third, it builds goodwill and strengthens the relationship bank account. Every expression of sincere appreciation is a deposit creating a reservoir of positive feeling that can help buffer future disagreements. Think about a time someone genuinely thanked you or praised your effort. How did it make you feel more receptive to that person? More willing to help them in the future? Apply that understanding proactively. Start meetings by acknowledging contributions. Thank people for their time and input, even if you haven't reached an agreement yet. Look for opportunities to praise specific actions or qualities. I really appreciate you taking the time to explain your concerns so clearly. I value the perspective you bring on this. Thank you for being willing to talk this through. Gratitude extends beyond direct appreciation of the other person. It's also about cultivating an internal attitude of gratitude for the opportunity to engage, to learn, even from difficult interactions. Seeing challenges as opportunities for growth, being thankful for the chance to practice patience and empathy shifts your own energy from resentment to resourcefulness. This internal state of gratitude radiates outward, subtly influencing the tone and direction of your interactions. It softens your approach, makes you more approachable, and infuses your communication with a warmth that can melt resistance in ways that logic or argument alone cannot achieve. Don't underestimate the profound persuasive power of a simple, sincere thank you, or a genuine acknowledgement of another's worth. It's a cornerstone of winning hearts and minds, not just arguments. And so, we arrive at the precipice of true influence. Not the fleeting power of intimidation or the hollow victory of dominance, but the enduring strength that comes from understanding connection and respect. Winning without fighting is not a passive dream. It is an active, courageous choice. It is the path of the master communicator, the wise leader, the relationship builder. It is the recognition that true power lies not in breaking the will of others, but in aligning hearts and minds towards a common purpose. Imagine the energy you conserve, the relationships you strengthen, the creative solutions you unlock when you choose dialogue over diatribe, empathy over animosity. Think of the ripple effect. In your teams, your families, your communities, when interactions are approached, not as battles to be won, but as opportunities to connect, understand, and build something better together. This is not about abandoning your principles or goals. It is about achieving them more effectively, more sustainably through a higher form of engagement. It requires you to be strong, not forceful, to be clear, not dogmatic, to be patient, not passive, to be adaptable, not aimless. This journey demands the courage to be vulnerable enough to listen, the discipline to manage your own reactions, the wisdom to see beyond the surface conflict to the human needs beneath. It asks you to wield empathy as your sharpest tool, understanding as your strongest shield, It challenges the age-old narrative that might makes right, proposing, instead, that insight makes influence. Look at the figures who shaped history, not just through conquest, but through connection. Lincoln holding a nation together, through sheer force of empathetic will. Gandhi liberating a country not with armies, but with an unshakable commitment to peaceful resistance and understanding. Nelson Mandela negotiating reconciliation after decades of imprisonment, choosing unity over retribution. Their power was immense, but it was rooted in a profound grasp of human nature, in the ability to persuade, to inspire, to connect even with those who opposed them. They won ultimately not by destroying their adversaries, but by transforming the very nature of the conflict. This power is within your reach. It begins today in your next conversation, your next disagreement, your next negotiation. Choose curiosity over certainty. Choose listening over lecturing. Choose understanding over winning an argument. See the person, not just the problem. Seek common ground, not conquest. Offer appreciation, not accusation. Mastering the art of peaceful persuasion is mastering the art of human connection. It is the key to unlocking collaboration, resolving conflict constructively, and building relationships that last. It is the path to winning hearts, winning minds, and ultimately winning outcomes, far greater than any victory achieved through force. Embrace this challenge. Cultivate these skills. Become an architect of understanding, a diplomat of daily life. Step off the battlefield and onto the bridge. Choose to win without fighting and discover the profound transformative power of peaceful persuasion. The world needs more builders, more connectors, more understanding. Let it begin with you.